And with me right now to talk about some interesting things, Mark Tell, how are you?
Lucy, can I say it's great to be here again?
It's always great to have you here again. And also Charles Biblizer, Deputy Editor for the News Today. Good evening.
Lucy, a pleasure.
And when you're seeing both of them, of course you understand that we're going to talk about the race for the presidency of the United States. And boy, it was interesting this week.
That's for sure.
That's for sure. Yes. What would you like to start with? I told you, and I promised your grandmother that I'm not going to say the name.
I'm a man of my word,
So
Lucy.
I'm not going to say the name.
A man of my word.
The guy that we're not talking about versus Hillary Clinton. Mark is not.
Well, I know who you're talking about, and I don't mind talking about it because I've said it. My personal view about the guy is that he shouldn't be president. I mean, that's not something that's very popular in certain circles. But look, he's always been leading Hillary Clinton in all the polling matchups for what they're worth. Okay, I mean, excuse me, the other way around. Hillary Clinton has been leading him. Okay, what's interesting though is you got Tom Cruise. This is not my day. Okay, Ted Cruz.
It could be Tom Cruise.
It's been one of those weeks, I think, Lucy. So anyway, so you had, it could be Tom Cruise. It might be more interesting. But anyway, Ted is pulled even with Hillary in the polling. And Marco Rubio continues to lead her, actually, by a small difference. But the race is getting more interesting. I'm going to be actually at the next debate in Charleston next week, and following on the heels of the Republican National Committee meeting. So it's going to be an interesting time.
I'm going to ask you a difficult question.
Please. You always do.
No, I never. Okay. If it will end up with the guy that we're not mentioning his name, and versus Clinton, will you vote for him? Or will you decide not to go, just to take a vacation that day?
That is the most difficult question you could possibly ask. Okay, look, I can't imagine many things that would be worse than having Hillary Clinton president of the United States from our point of view. I really hope that our party has, and the people that are going to the polls just in a few weeks from now, just about three and a half weeks from now in Iowa, will have more sense than to elect the man we're not talking about. But I'll tell you, one of the things that's interesting that your viewers should know is that the first set of primaries coming up are being handled according to a different set of rules than in the past. In the past, what happened in the United States is that the person that won, that got the most votes in a state primary, took all the delegates from that state. In these next few primaries, beginning with Iowa and South Carolina, Florida, and so on, New Hampshire, you will see that the rules have changed, and that the person who wins the most votes in those primaries will not take all the delegates, but only a proportionate share. So that'll make the race much more interesting.
So
close.
And
close.
Yeah.
Raising the prospects of the convention being really fireworks.
So let's talk numbers.
Some numbers. Lucy, you know the way to my heart.
I know.
Basically, in the new year, there haven't been that many recent polls, so I had to dig a little bit into the past. And what I really...
Vacation.
Yeah, well... people at the end of the year, they have to unwind. But we're getting back to business, and as Mark said, really looking towards Iowa on February 1st and a week later in New Hampshire. But what I really wanted to look into is how the candidates match up against Hillary. And Mark kind of mentioned it initially. No, of course, please. But what really interested me the most was that Ted Cruz is actually polling neck and neck, if not ahead of Hillary Clinton, which is very interesting because Ted Cruz is also known as not an extremist candidate, but he's pretty far to the right. And it's interesting how he matches up so well against the centrist figure of Hillary Clinton. So there were, even in a CNN poll, for example, he was actually ahead. Like Mark said as well, Rubio is actually polling in front of Hillary in most polls. And the irony is that Donald polls most poorly against Hillary, and that's another reason for the Republicans really to move away from him, especially as we get into primary season.
So let's talk about the guy that also was maybe one of the prominent, let's say, leaders, or maybe the head leaders, the front runners of this race, and it was Ben Carson. What is happening there? What is happening in his campaign?
Well, what's happening there is something that I expected to happen all along. I know him. He's a fine man. He's an intelligent man. I think he has a place in the next cabinet if a Republican takes the White House in 2016. But a lot of the issues that, particularly national security and defense issues that became so prominent in the public debate in the last few months, really were kind of beyond his reach. And there were also strong divisions within his own campaign staff. I won't mention names. I happen to know something about that. But it just is not working out for him. I think the public is seeing it, and he's basically imploded.
Well, I mean, this campaign basically, the senior officials basically resigned en masse just over the weekend. Right. And it's really kind of a meteoric fall for Dr. Ben Carson, who at one point, even as recently as November, was challenging Trump for the frontrunner of the Republic. I agree with you that he just seemed a little bit over his head. At the end of the day, in particular when it came to policy issues, foreign policy in particular, in my opinion. That being said, he goes by the wayside of other candidates like Michelle Bachmann in 2012, Herman Cain, Rick Santorum, Rick Perry, who were there and then fell back. But it also shows you the staying power of Donald Trump, which is...
I told you not to mention him.
I had to.
We said we're not mentioning his name.
I was...
Well,
okay, 2020, it will be the guy that we're not mentioning, Tom Cruise and Kanye West. Gentlemen, thank you very much for this.